Welcome everybody to Mindful Mondays with Laura Cross. I am your host and resource for self-care and mindfulness. And today we have our special guest, Peter Christian, a seasoned business consultant with a wealth of experience in driving profit improvement and business development. He has over 40 years of expertise in strategic planning, lean practices, and supply chain management. And Peter has helped countless of companies achieve remarkable cost reductions and profit enhancements, ultimately creating and preserving thousands of jobs. He is also the best-selling author of What About the Vermin Problem and Influences and Influencers, where he shares valuable insights on work-life balance, self-care, overcoming adversity, and the importance of prioritizing your well-being in today's fast-paced world. So we are here with Peter today to talk about mastering business and wellness with business. So Peter, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. Pleasure to be here.
Yeah, everybody thinks sometimes mindfulness is always like, bubble baths or whatever. It's like, it's a whole picture, because if you're not well with your business, then we also still have problems. But can you share with us what your inspiration was behind the books? What About the Vermin Problem and Influences and Influencers?
Well, the first one, What About the Vermin Problem, kind of was a genesis from my business experiences, primarily as a consultant. As you can imagine, you deal with a variety of different folks, and you get some interesting stories out of it. And as they would occur, I would say to myself and to my colleagues, someday this would really be good in a book. And they go, absolutely. But I never wrote the book. So then I was sitting around and I said, well, now I guess is the time to write the book. You've talked about it, so I did. And I wrote it as best I could, but then I needed somebody to help me to kind of put it together and get it to flow and that. And she was a great help to me. And as we're getting finished with the book, she says, so what are you going to do for the second book? And I said, what second book? And she says, well, authors don't just do one book. And I said, well, I hadn't really thought about this. So I did, and I said, yeah, I guess I have enough stuff that I could talk about something else, and not on the same topic, but slightly different. So that was the genesis for Influences and Influencers. What About the Vermin Problem dealt with the business activities I was in, the folks I dealt with, and some of the good things I did and the not so good things and so forth, and how, depending on how you make decisions in your business career, you can do very, very well, or you can do not so well. But then I thought, well, what causes us to do the things that we do? And that's what Influences and Influences is about, is what impacts us, what causes us to think the way we do, to act the way we do, who helps us, who doesn't help us, what do we take from our experiences, and not just in the business world, but in life in general. So that was Influences and Influencers, to go back. And now I did it the right way, because I was working with her right from the start. I found out all the things you're supposed to do about a book that I didn't know before. But anyway, so that's how I came about with two books. Then, very sneakily, she said to me, what I would want you to do is to write an article a month for a year. And I said, okay, and I didn't really question it. And all of a sudden, in about the second or the third month, it dawned on me, she's got me writing another book. Because you get done with 12 months, and you got 12 chapters, and you're also... So I kind of brought that to her attention. She just kind of chuckled and nodded knowingly. I haven't quite gotten there. I've got the 12 chapters. In fact, I've got quite a few more chapters than that, so I could do a couple more books if I wanted. But I haven't gotten there yet. I'm satisfied with two for right now. So
I was going to say, yeah, if you're doing an article a month, basically she's probably got you to where you just put the articles together and whoop, there's another book, especially if
there you go. Yeah.
It was pretty sneaky, but yeah, I think a lot of us come up across that, because I've come across people where they're like, oh, well, haven't you written a book? I'm thinking, well, what do I have to write about? But I think we kind of undersell ourselves. We have a lot of experience. You obviously have a lot of experience working with people in the business world for
Mm.
multitude of years. And really, that is a lot of knowledge that I think people could learn from and benefit from.
And that was my thought too. Is I've got this experience, I've got the knowledge that I've gained, to not share it with folks, and hopefully to help them, so that they can not have to experience some of the same things, or if they do, to realize that they're not alone. There's other people going through what they've gone through, and how to deal with things. It gives them hopefully some good insights into that. That was the other part of doing it, was I think to be a help to other people.
Yeah, which is wonderful. What do you think is, or what do you believe has been the driving force behind your success in the world of business consulting?
The fact that, first of all, I worked in the business world before I went into consulting. I had the opportunity to go into to go into their operations consulting practice, and I thought to myself, what do I know? I really don't have that experience. So I'm going to sit in front of somebody who's got 20, 25, 30 years worth of experience and tell them, well, I think you should do this, and they're going to go, based on what? And that was the stumper. So I wasn't quite ready for that. But having worked in industry for about 20 years before I got into consulting, and actually a person who kind of influenced me to get into consulting said, do you realize that really you've been an internal consultant in your business life, so why don't you just go and do it with other people? Which was, the light bulb went off. And also said, yeah, now you've got the experience. You've gone through it yourself. You've dealt with consultants. You've dealt with other people. I was involved in a variety of different functions in the corporate world. So I saw everything pretty much that went on in a corporation and how to deal with stuff. And I thought, I probably could help people now. I've helped people internally. So that was the driving force to get me into consulting, and I think I did a pretty good job, all in all.
Yeah, you have some success stories. I believe we were talking about one particular company where
Mhm.
I think a lot of it was mindset or something. The first thought is, oh my God, I have to lay off a lot of people. Would you like to share that story with everybody?
Many enterprises are like that. As soon as they start to have a problem, the first thought is, well, I'll just cut people. I'll cut expenses, I'll cut people. And that's the easy way to do stuff. But you can do that for a little bit, but your ongoing success is not built on that. And I was influenced by a consultant that I used in project management when I was at Crayola. And he talked about how he worked for the company that does the Pink Panther with the insulation. And they were going through a tough time because building new homes had basically stopped. And so they weren't selling a lot of insulating materials. So they called him in order to help them to downsize, so to speak, tide over until things started again. And he said when he did it, he said to them, give me 3 of your most free-thinking people, okay? Have no biases, basically are usually positive, come up with good ideas and that. And he sat with them and he said, so if we go and we do this and we lay all these people off, and work through this downturn in the industry. And what they came up with was, while people weren't building new, they already bought, and they were making improvements to them. And one of the big improvements was insulation, putting in so that in the wintertime it was warm, and in the summertime the cool air stayed in, and so forth. And they started a whole new industry, kind of a do-it-yourself or a self-help type of thing, to sell insulating materials to people. And they were going gangbusters. And then when home construction started again, and building construction, even in businesses, they were really going gangbusters, and they were glad that they hadn't gotten rid of all these people that they had planned on doing. So I thought to myself, that makes a lot of sense. So wherever I was at, even at Crayola, when we would have, we were always looking at making improvements to operations, and usually it involved, trying to cut back on the number of people that were involved in operations and that. But never once did we let those people go. Now, finance didn't like that, and the finance people go, well, did you really save anything? Because, yeah, they're not working on the line, but they're still here. But we were growing as a company, so as new opportunities came, we had these people available and we slotted them into these new opportunities. We didn't have to hire anybody else, so we had more business with the same number of people. And I took that approach when I got into the our productivity's down, we got to get rid of people, or where our costs are too high. Well, we would delve into, well, where are your costs? And in a lot of cases, we find out that they were doing some really incredibly silly things, and it had nothing to do with the people. People were doing fine. They were doing what they were supposed to do. So we started to look at the other things that they were spending money on and get rid of some of those things. And again, look at other opportunities, other ways that they could expand their business and use the people, the excess, so to speak, people. The other thing was to make sure that when they started new operations that they didn't overload them with people. And that was another thing I learned too. You always start lean. You start with the smallest number of people you can, and you see how well they do. And if they're struggling a bit, you can add a person, and it takes some of the load off and things go fairly well. But if you put too many people on, it's pretty hard to kind of cut back after the fact. So there's always that balancing act that you have when you're working with people and operations in all aspects. It doesn't have to be just in manufacturing. It can be in the office as well. You have 10 people in the finance area when you really only need 8. Well, what do you do with the 2 extras? Okay, well, the first thing is you think, well, I'll get rid of them. Well, you shouldn't have put them there in the first place. And if you do, quite honestly, I think businesses have obligations to their people. Okay, they came to work for you. They're doing a good job. All right, they're doing everything that you're asking them to do, and you're responsible for their livelihood. And when you cut them for no good reason, that's kind of a really poor sign to people that you really don't know what you're doing, and you really don't care about your people that much. So I've gone with that philosophy about you don't get rid of people. If you do, you might as well be closing the doors. So, and it's worked for me by and large. Of course, I get some strange looks from individuals, who think that that's the way they're going to do it, and I just need to tell them which people to get rid of. Very, very silly. Wrong way to go about
I wish more
running a
people
business.
would adopt your philosophy on that, because it's,
I
you need
always
people.
felt,
You need
yes,
people to run the business, and if you do that to them,
yeah, a quick story, running my own enterprise, the consulting firm in 2008 when the mortgage crisis hit, well, that affected all sorts of lending to businesses, and they would cut back on outside services. And guess what? One of the outside services was consultants. Well, we saw a big drop in our business. And first thing we looked at was our largest expense was our salaries, the people that we employed. So what we did is we went to the employees and we said, everybody, even the owners, are taking a 20% pay cut. And by doing that, we can continue to operate. You're not going to make as much money as you made before, okay, but you're still making money and nobody loses his or her job. And we kind of slugged through for a year or whatever it was, and now things start to turn around. And all of a sudden, again, here we had more business. We had the people to do the business. Well, we started to grow and we started to become more profitable. Well, we had accounted for all of the money that we didn't pay people when we did the 20% cut. So what we did is we started to pay people back. And by, I would say, 18 months at the longest, everybody had gotten back all the money that they hadn't gotten when we reduced their salaries by 20%. And believe me, that has a big impact on people. Then they know that you really care about them and that you're in it for them, not just for yourself.
Yeah, that's incredible. I love that. So for our audience seeking to achieve success, what advice would you offer to help them on their journey?
Uh, be involved in your business. You will make your business successful. Nobody else will. So you can hire 100 Peter Christians, okay? And they can help you, all right? But they can't do it for you. At the end of the day, it's up to you. So you have to take the knowledge and the advice, the recommendations that they give you, and you question them. There's no problem with questioning what people tell you you should or shouldn't be doing, because you need to understand what they're really saying, and you have to come to an agreement on it. But then you got to take it and you got to run with it. You got to do it. You got to be committed to actually doing what they're telling you to do. I had one client. Uh, every project we were on, they did, and they were successful. And they said to me, "Well, we're spending good money and we're spending our time to have you in here. Of course, we're going to do this stuff." And they questioned a lot of things, but they were doing it so they really understood what we were getting at, and so that they knew what they needed to do. And then they went and did it, and they incorporated that. And they said, "We're not bringing you in on the day-to-day operations. We've got that stuff. We're bringing you in on the ones where it's a one-timer, or we need to make a change, and then we're going to incorporate it into our practices, but we don't quite know how to do it." For instance, they didn't know how to do strategic planning on the operational side. So we did that with them, and we had a person from their side, and he was involved through the whole thing. And then when we done, he took it over. He
Yeah.
knew what to do. He had the manual. He had the end result from the first one. So they were terrific. They were one of the best clients I ever had, because I had no problem answering their questions because I knew why they were doing it, and I also knew at the end of the day they were going to do what they were supposed to do. And on occasion, they would bring up something where there might be a different way to go about it, or something was not quite right with the recommendation, and that happens. And we made the adaptations that were necessary, and they went off and did it. And they were just terrific. I really enjoyed working with them. And they'd get done with one project, and they'd find another one. So it was really, really good.
Yeah. And that's good when you have someone that's willing to do that. Like you said, asks questions. They don't just, like blindly follow. They ask questions to understand. And then
Yeah.
I'm sure you have yours every now and then that say, well, but that's the way we've always done it.
Them or their people. You go in to
Yeah.
work with their people, and they go, "Oh, well, we've tried this before," or they always tell us that they're going to change, and then they don't do anything different. Why should we, you know, consider it different this time? And I'd say, well, again, they're spending money and they're spending time, so they're honest about it. Yeah, always hated that. We always have done it this way. Well, that's why you got the problems you do. You need to change some things. Surprise.
Yeah. You got to think, how's that working out for you?
Yeah, that old saying about doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result.
It is the definition of insanity.
It is the definition, and I have faced it many times. Yes, yes.
So, in your view, what is the most important aspect of life that individuals, should prioritize when they're doing this, when they're looking at business and their life?
Well, first of all, balance. Okay. Again, we're going to throw up all sorts of old sayings. There's that old saying, "You work to live, you don't live to work," and I fully agree with that. So even in our consulting practice, and as I said, we were very busy. Never asked our people to put more than 45 hours a week in, with an exception. If there was something that was really necessary and they needed a little bit more time, we would do that. But that was the rare exception. Past 45 hours a week, that was 9 hours a day. We would say we need to add another person or persons because we have so much work and we need to do that. And then they had time, and that was enough, that they got vacation time, and they needed to use vacation time away from what you're doing. And so I was a big advocate for that. I could never, oh, well, you're foolish. Why don't you give it to me? I could certainly use it. I have plenty of things to do. So I was a big advocate for that. And if I saw people who hadn't taken time off in a while, I would say to them, I think you need to take a couple of days, just go do something fun. And, well, I got to do this. Yeah. And guess what? It'll be here when you get back, because there'll always be something that you have to do. So I think that a work-life balance is very important. Now, when you're working, then you need to work, and quite honestly, if you really prioritize what you're doing and you focus on the things that are necessary, you can get a lot more done. I've always found people who spent less time than other people got a lot more done than those folks, because they focused on what was really important, and that's what they did. And the people who spent a lot of time, they were doing all sorts of stuff, and yes, they were busy, but they weren't accomplishing as much. So it never impressed me when somebody said, "Oh, I spent 70 hours a week." I'll go back to, like I said, when I was coming out of school and I had an opportunity for work for Price Waterhouse. They gave me somebody to take me around that day, and the guy was bragging about how he worked 20 hours a day. And it didn't impress me. And he told me that he had to schedule time to meet his wife so that they would have time together. And I thought, that's crazy. I never want to get into something like 20 hours a day. You have no life. To me, the work is important, but it's not my entire life. It's a part of my life. Yeah, it helps me to get money and to do things. But at the end of the day, my family was more important than my job, quite honestly. So he didn't impress me, and that was one of the reasons I thought to myself, if that's what their expectation is of me, then probably this isn't the right place for me to be working. I just was like, wow, 20 hours a day. I'm thinking, I'm tired after like 10 hours. I can't imagine by the time you get to the 20th, you're like, and how much do you really accomplish at that point? Okay.
Yeah.
So anyway.
I've worked 12-hour compressed shifts, so yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I did it in school. I never crammed for exams. I thought to myself, if I don't know what I need to know at this point, spending a couple of extra hours and losing sleep over it is not going to help me. So I knew when to cut off, and that was that. So I think those are important things, is focusing on the right things to do, working on them, and then spending time to recharge the batteries and do some fun stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I know we have a lot more to discuss, but we do need to take a break from a word from our sponsors real quick, and we'll be right back.
Sounds good.
Hello, my name is Peter. I'm a Dharma Master. I teach Qigong at the Bright Beings Academy. What kind of Qigong do we teach? Well, it helps you to get your mind into your body and your breath very quickly. We really start off with quite quick movements to help cater for the busy Western mind, coming into stretching out the meridians, waking up the chakra system and the danjons, coming into Jigan meditation, which helps you to really focus on the energy in and around your body, bringing you into that beautiful calm state where you can sit and meditate really easily, whereas maybe before you found it really difficult. So Qigong at the Bright Beings Academy will help you get more in touch with yourself.
Hi, I'm Bobby Aldridge with BAM Metrics. There are so many programs out there that measure your swing speed, sets, reps, your BMI, your body fat, but the one thing they're not measuring that's so essential is mobility. Mobility is the key. If you're measuring your mobility, your performance will get better and you will reduce your pain. I created BAM Metrics to make it easy for people to repeat the exercises so they could do it properly at home on their own. It's simple, it's easy to do, and from a senior to a pro athlete.
So, Peter, you've had a lot of years, a lot of different experiences. So, looking back at those experiences, are there any aspects of your journey that you would approach differently if you were given the chance?
That's hard to say. By and large, I've been pretty satisfied. There are always some disappointments that you have a rise in the corporate ranks through my stick-to-itiveness, through my ability to work well on my own and with others. Then when I was done with that, to be able to go out and work with other companies and a variety of different people. It's funny, one of my clients said to me one time, how do you like doing that? Because he was used to showing up every day. And I said, well, what time do you knock off at night? And he says, well, 6 or 7. I said, I'm done at 5. And I said, and I bet you're taking stuff home at night, aren't you? And he goes, yeah. I go, I'm not doing that. He goes, oh. I said, and every day is a new adventure. I get to meet different people in different organizations who do different things, and they have common problems, but they are unique, because they're different businesses. I said, so, it's pretty neat, the things that I do. I have a wide variety. So I'm not sure that I would do things differently. I mean, probably some subtle little changes here or there. I always thought about, could I have become a top executive at a large company? What if I had gone and worked for Price Waterhouse? Because I remember they showed me, one of the partners brought me up to his walnut covered office, and said, someday this could all be yours. Of course, he didn't tell me that like 99.5% of consultants in large companies don't last more than 2 or 3 years. They go to work for somebody else. But anyway, I think about that and say, what if I had done that? But at the end of the day, I'm satisfied. I'm satisfied with what I did. It was a good experience, and I think I did very well at it. And if I were to do it all over again, I'd probably do it the same way for the most part. Maybe a little change here or there, but nothing significant.
Yeah, it's amazing how they make it try and sound so grandiose. All this could be yours. And it's like, and you're looking at them, it's like, okay. And so now you're working even more hours. You're not necessarily getting paid that much more. You got less time with your family. And so what are you doing all of that for?
Yeah, it's like somebody who goes and travels, and they build up all these frequent flyer miles. And then, so you've already traveled, okay, and now you're going to fly some more. It's like, it kind of doesn't make a lot of sense to me after a while. So I've had a good balance. I had a good balance. I was able to spend a lot of quality time with my family, with my children, to be part of their lives as they were growing up, to be a coach for them and a mentor, and to be there at their activities. And I think that's important. You don't have a family to ignore them. And I remember Lee Iacocca from Chrysler Corporation, and he said, I never missed anything that was important to my children. And that stuck with me. Somebody that had risen to those ranks to say that. So I made sure that the same was true with myself.
Yeah, it sounds like you had your own good, healthy boundaries, because I know there's too many people that, work late or do this, or maybe it's the extra little bit of money that they're promising, or someone's under pressure to get this and they bring it home. And, then you wonder why your family's frustrated with you, because you're maybe home, but you're not there. You're on your phone, you're on your computer, but you're not really present with them.
No, they always took first priority. They
Yeah.
always took first priority. Yep.
Okay. Yeah, I think wish that would be more of a practice with a lot of people, but hopefully people will get the message and try it out.
I think they are, by and large.
Yeah.
I think
I
pendulum
think,
swings. Yeah.
yeah. Yep. Some things we've gone through, I think, kind of put different light on that lately,
Yeah.
but yeah. How's your expertise in strategic planning and lean practices impacted the success for your clients?
A lot, because in a lot of cases when we would go to find out what it is that they thought that they needed, one of the questions was, well, how does that fit with your strategic plan? and there'd be this silence and what I like to call the deer in the headlight look, with just, and it told me that they didn't have a strategic plan. Okay, so what they were doing, uh, it didn't fit, but because they didn't have anything. So the first thing was to say, what is it you're trying to accomplish overall? Okay, and then let's see how it fits. And on occasion, it changed what the outlook was, or they thought they knew what the problem is versus just kind of seeing that superficial or visual end result, okay, but it's not really the cause, it's the end result of it. So I think getting them to understand that, and before they went and tried to make changes, to understand what those changes were about, and then how they were going to impact where they were trying to go as a business. And if they weren't clearly defining that, they needed to do that first, okay? So they kind of got that as a freebie because we didn't really sign up to do a lot of strategic planning for them, but we forced them to do that, okay? And then they could see, what it was that they were doing and how that was going to impact. Because sometimes you can make a change and it actually hurts you more than helps you. And you don't want that with a client. You want to make sure that whatever it is that you're doing, that their money is well spent, that your time is well spent, and they get the rewards out of it that they're looking for. So I've tried to do that. Okay. The other thing is I always ask them at the beginning, because after a while you learn, are you really committed to making the changes that we're going to come up with? And they didn't even know what they were at the time. And they would look at me and I'd say, because if you're not, then let's not even go through what you're asking me to do. Don't spend your money, don't spend your time, don't spend my time. Just keep doing what you're doing. Because if we spend all this time and go through all this and then you don't do it, that's craziness, okay? And you're not going to be happy. And I'm certainly not going to be happy, because I would put myself into the company. And I felt as much the success as they did, and certainly if there was not a success, the non-success that they did, and it bothered me when they didn't achieve what it is that they were looking for. I had one client, and we went through all the different things and came up with the recommendations, and we said to them, you put a value on these things. When these changes occur, what's the value going to be? Now, they were about a $5 million, $6 million company, and it was close to $500,000 worth of improvements. That was pretty darn good. So we said, okay, we'd like to help you to implement those. And they said, no, we have it. Okay, fine. You say you have it. So about a year goes by, and a fellow who had provided some funding from the state organization calls me up and he says, I was just talking to them and they're very unhappy. Well, what are they very unhappy about? Well, they have not realized 1 cent of the improvements that you guys came up with. And I said, gee, why is that? I said, didn't they do the implementations? Well, they haven't implemented anything. And I had the deer in the headlight look, okay? And I said to him, why are we having this conversation? It's kind of like that, you do the same thing over again, you expect a different result. Well, when you don't do anything and you expect to get improvements out of it, that's kind of like the same thing, just, off a little bit. I said to him, well, tell them to go and do all the implementations that they agreed to, and they'll get all the dollars that they put down for it. I said, why are you calling me about this? You should be telling them that. That should be your obligation. I said, I shouldn't have. It just stuns you when people do that. But yet, oh yeah, we're going to take care of it. So there were a lot of times we really pushed hard to do the implementations, not just the recommendations, to make sure that companies did that. On other occasions, they would say, well, we'll give you a percentage of what we save. And I'd say, no. And they'd look at me, well, why not? Because it was actually more that I would have gotten than if they just paid me a flat rate. And I said, because I can't guarantee you're going to do it. I said, if you let me go, like with that one organization, and say you're going to do it, and then you don't do it, well, you're going to say we got zero benefits were, now, if I work with you and we make sure that it happens, then I'll be happy to do that if you're willing to do that, but it's going to cost you a bit more because there's more time involved. I said, but no, I'm not taking a percentage. Only once did I do that. And it actually worked out. It worked out very well. In fact, they wound up paying us more than what we thought they were going to. But by and large, I didn't do that because I heard too many horror stories about that from people who said they would take a percentage and then got Zippo for it because the company didn't follow through. And I had no control over it. Neither did they.
Yeah,
So,
it's amazing how that happens. I've seen people start like home-based businesses and they're only in it for maybe 30, 60 days and this doesn't work. Well, this is a payment. Did you tell anybody? I mean, if you don't tell anybody or talk to anybody and tell them that you have a business, how do you expect it to, work? Or they don't follow through, but then they want to blame the company and say that the company's bad. It's like, company's not bad. It's 100% on your efforts. And if you don't put the effort in, you will get zip.
yep, exactly. Like I said, as a business owner, it's up to you to make the improvement. It's not up to the consultant, okay? You have to take the bull by the horns and run with it. Nobody can make you successful. You have to make you successful.
Yeah. Can you share some of the strategies that individuals can employ to like overcome adversity and thrive in their challenging circumstances? I mean, I know that there's a ton of different circumstances, but maybe
Yeah.
overall.
Again, pay attention to your business, okay? Do not cede it over to people. I watch these different shows where they bring a manager in and then they're not involved and the manager's not doing what they should be doing and the thing is a disaster. You can't do that. If you're the owner, you have a vested interest and you need to be involved, okay? Now, not micromanaging involved, but involved to know what's going on and to see if there's a problem and to head it off. If you don't know something and you have a gap, okay, in talent or whatever the case may be, bring a consultant in to help you for a bit. Now, there are a ton of consultants out there. I've talked about this before. Find the right one because there's a lot of people who make all sorts of promises. Do your due diligence. Talk to people you know in your business community or friends who use somebody, okay, and find out what that individual is like, how they operate, and what the success was and how long it took. It's still not a guarantee, okay, because, just like the financial things where they say, past investments do not guarantee that the future will be. Well, the same is true with a consultant. They may be fine in one particular aspect, but they're not in another. And again, you have to manage that. You have to stay involved. Don't just turn it over to the consultant and let them go do their thing and you're not involved and don't hear what's going on. And all of a sudden you get this bill and nothing has happened or not what you expected to. So you need to stay involved with it, okay? But get some good people. Now, again, don't rely on consultants. If it's a long-term deal, you might use a consultant on a short-term basis and then you have to hire a talented person as a manager or whatever the case may be, wherever the needs are. And I think if you do those, okay, there's no harm in using consultants. I was an executive of Crayola. And by and large, I had pretty good experiences with that. And where they didn't quite turn out as well as they did, I still got benefit out of it, maybe not as much as I did, and I learned for the next time, questions to ask and things to do. So I think, managing the business and realizing that you have to do it on a regular basis, and also you have to stay up with the times. You can't keep running the business the same way. Technology changes, customer requirements and desires change, materials change, supply chains change. We didn't call them supply chains back in the day. I did. It was called logistics, and now it's called supply chain. But it's pretty wide sweeping because in a lot of cases you dealt with vendors that were close to you. Well, now you're dealing worldwide with materials and services coming in. So you've got to stay up with that stuff, okay, and adapt to the changes as they occur. You don't need to remake the company in its entirety. You still have a good solid foundation, but you need to make changes where they're necessary in order to keep going and growing. So I think that's important for business owners and executives to realize.
Yeah, I've seen a number of people, and I've always dabbled with the thing of possibly getting a virtual assistant. I've got people tell me, you need an assistant, you need something. Like, yeah, well, that takes time. You got to make sure the person's a good fit or is going to do stuff, because I've trusted people in the past, and they put stuff up that was not true on a website and took it over, and I had to take it back over. So, I mean, it's tough sometimes.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. But
So
we
how do
find
you
ways.
how do you personally prioritize your self-care and well-being in both your professional and personal life?
Well, as I said, my personal life came first, particularly my family.
Yeah.
Okay, so if push came to shove, I was there for them. In work, it was not taking on more than I knew that I could do. Because when you do that, and it always sounds great, oh yeah, I can do one more thing. That theory of one. I have this thing called the theory of one, where you just keep adding one little thing, okay? And all of a sudden, after you've added like the 20th one little thing, you realize you got this big pile of stuff that you didn't have before. Don't get trapped in that, okay? And I knew what my limitations were. And when I went beyond that, then yeah, I could physically work on this stuff, but I wasn't going to pay the attention that I needed to each of the things. So I would defer things then, okay, to make sure that I wasn't so overwhelmed or overburdened with stuff that I couldn't pay attention to what really needed to be paid attention to. Because there's always going to be a ton of things that need to be done. But like everything else, you prioritize which is the one that's going to have the biggest impact, which one means the most, and that's number one. And then there's a number two. And quite honestly, 3 to 5. If you're working on 3 to 5 things at a time, that's more than enough. I remember when Reagan was president, for those who go back that far, and he picked 3 things that he was going to do during his presidency. And he said, I need to focus on those, and I will do them, and I will do them well. Now, there were other things going on, and he had people to do that, but they were not his priorities, okay? And I think the same thing is true in business as well. Don't get too overwhelmed with things, because everybody always wants something, okay? They're always going to come and ask you, oh, can't you do this for me? Oh, blah, blah. Again, I had one where when I was at Crayola, vice president came to me, and he had this pet project that he wanted to get done. And he wanted to get it done in a fairly short space of time, like a month or a month and a half. And I looked at the staff and what everybody was doing, and I said, we can do that, but I'm going to have to pull people off of other things. I said, and here's the deal. We will work on what it is you want, and we will get it done in the time frame, but do not ask me about project A, B, C, D, because they're going to be on hold. Okay, we had an agreement. So the 6 weeks goes by, and we get it done, and he comes down, and he, see, I told you could get it done. Yeah, you kind of forgot about what it took to get it done. And what was the first thing out of his mouth? Well, what about project A, B, C, and D? And I said, stop. I said, remember what we agreed to. I said, and we haven't done anything on projects A, B, C, and D because we've been working on this project for you, like we agreed to, and now we will go back and we'll work on those other things. But people forget that stuff, They think, oh, he's just kidding me. Oh, he can handle all of it. No. I knew what I could do. I knew what my people could do, and we did it. And if that was the agreement, then you need to pay attention to what you said, okay, because that was it. And then we would go back and we would work on this stuff because, you're always juggling balls. And like I said to somebody, a juggler, you notice they get a rhythm, okay? And if suddenly throws another object into the mix and they're not ready for it, what usually happens? They drop all the balls, okay?
Yep.
Or they haven't trained for that. They're used to juggling 5 items and they're not ready for the 6th or the 7th. Okay, when they try it, it doesn't work. Okay, and again, they're dropping all the balls. You don't want to do that. You want to keep all those balls in the air. So when you get to your limit, that's it. So either you put one ball down and you put another ball in, or you just deal with the 5 that you got until you're ready, and then you can get to the next one. So I
Yeah,
think
and that's a good
important
analogy.
too. Know your limitations.
Yeah, otherwise
Yeah.
that's a recipe for burnout quickly.
And disaster.
Yeah,
Okay. You
and
can work on 100 things, but you're only going to do a little bit of each one, and then they're going to take forever to get done, and people don't want that. They want things to get done. Okay. So focus on them, get them done, and then pick up the next ones. Quite honestly, the stuff that's on your priority list, it's down at the bottom. A lot of times that stuff goes away because it really wasn't that important. Okay. So if you didn't pay attention to it, no big deal, because it didn't really matter anyway. I used to do that sometimes. People would call me up and I go, yeah, okay. And then I would just ignore it, and I'd wait to see if they ever called back. If they never called back, it really wasn't that important. So why did I waste my time on it?
That is true. It's amazing how something seems so important. And yeah, and like you're saying, when you're trying to do more things or 100 things, you might be doing a little on each one, but you're probably really not even doing it very well. Where if you focus on a couple of things, you can, really do it well, knock it out faster, and,
Sure.
move on to the next one.
Yep, absolutely.
So, what are some key lessons that you think individuals can learn from your experiences in business development and profit improvement?
Well, first of all, don't go immediately for laying people off to improve your profit. That's a very short-term thing, and it doesn't last very long, and it could probably cause you more harm than good. Really find out what the problems are, and again, what needs to be done, okay, and how it fits into your overall strategy, okay, and have an overall strategy. If you can't do that, then start with what's my overall strategy before you start looking at changes that you want to make. And then once you've got that, then you go and you say, okay, now what do I need to do, and how do I need to do it, and so forth. Be open, get varying opinions. Okay, and I always used to do that with my folks. We would sit and we would get opinions, and then we would discuss it, and we would pick the one that made the most sense. But then we would say to everybody else, just because we're not using your idea this time doesn't mean it was a bad idea. It just means that we found something that we think is a little bit better. But the next time, who knows? What you come up with may be the one that we work on. So get varying opinions. Don't just think that there's only one way to do things. There's usually multiple ways to do it, okay? And maybe it's a little of this and a little of that, or sometimes you find out that the thought you had about what change needs to be made wasn't the right one, okay? Yeah, it could be done, but it won't have that much of an impact. We always did fishbone analysis, if you've seen that, where you come up with problems and solutions, and it looks like a fishbone when you get done. And you've got, it can be pretty extensive, but then you've got to pick which ones make just impact, and that's what you want to go for. Typically, people look to do the easy stuff, but that doesn't have the biggest impact. So yeah, they get it done. They go, well, gee, I didn't get what I thought I was going to get. Yeah, because you didn't pick the big stuff. You picked the easy, small stuff to do. So, and again, that takes time. It goes back to the time element. Again, you only have so much time to do stuff. What are you going to spend your time on? I've written an article called 168. We all have 168 hours every week to do stuff. What is it we're going to spend our time on? When people say, I don't have enough time, you got 168 hours a week. What are you doing with it? Let's start to lay it all out, and then we'll find out, oh, you got plenty of time. You're just working on all the wrong things. So,
yeah, we have a few minutes left.
Those are important things. Okay.
Yeah, we have a few minutes left, Peter. Obviously, you have a lot of knowledge and insights to share with people. the QR code that I have for peterchristianbook.com, is that the best way for people to connect with you to help get more insight, your books?
Yeah, that or catch me on LinkedIn. I have a LinkedIn page. Okay, so look for Peter Christian, and it'll say author, consultant, speaker, professor, because I do some teaching, and because there are a bunch of Peter Christians in this world. But you'll find me, and you can send me a note and say, I'd like to hook up. There's some stuff I'd like to talk about, and we can do that, and we can set up, something like this, a Zoom link or whatever the case. It gets to be really extensive, and then we can talk about, if there's something that is bigger that needs to be done, and then we can talk about that. But I'm happy to spend time giving people advice and hopefully answering some questions that they may have, and at no charge to them. So it's not a bad deal.
No, not at all.
So LinkedIn.
Definitely not a lot of knowledge. That's good. And I know we talked a lot about corporates and business and corporations, but it applies to entrepreneurs and individual business owners as well.
Yep. Yes, absolutely. Yep. And don't be afraid to ask for help. Okay, there are a lot of good people out there who want to see you succeed. Okay, I'm one of them, and they're willing to help you if you ask for the help. But when you don't ask for the help, they may not know. Okay, and not everybody is willing to just venture and do that. I've been fortunate in my life. I had some people who provided help to me because they saw that I could use it without me asking for it, and you'll get that on occasion. But don't be afraid to ask for help. Nobody expects you to know everything. Nobody expects you to be perfect. And sometimes you just need that other opinion or that shoulder to cry on, to get out whatever it is and then move on. So use it when you can. I've been very fortunate.
Yeah, and that's very true. I think a lot of us put that pressure on ourselves of, being perfect, or we think everybody's expecting us to be perfect, but really not. We put that pressure on ourselves.
Right. Nope. Just do what you do and do it well, and that's enough.
Well, I want to thank you, Peter, very much for taking the time and sharing all of that with our audience. And if any of you are struggling in the area of business, I do highly recommend that you reach out and connect with Peter, because as you can see, he's a very down-to-earth person with a lot of knowledge, and he's easy to talk to. So thank you so much for taking the time with us this week.
Again, thank you very much for having me. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you. And we will see you all next week on our next episode of Mindful Mondays with Laura Cross. Until then, have a wonderful week and a great weekend. We'll see you then.